I'm Cameron Curry, the CEO for the Classical Academies. Super excited to have this opportunity to talk to Dr. Michelle Borba, who is our keynote speaker this morning at JumpStart. And this is really exciting because Dr. Borba is an educational psychologist. She's a Today Show contributor, and she is the author of this really great book we're going to talk about today, Unselfie. And it is why empathetic kids succeed in our all about me world. So, Dr. Michelle, welcome back.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. It's an honor.
This is great.
Yeah.
And to remind everybody, you were with us several years ago.
I was. It was so fun, and we were trying to figure out which book it was, but I had such fond memories, and it was a great experience. I really am a fan of
Beautiful, beautiful.
Academy.
Well, thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
It's such an uncertain time in which we're living today.
Yeah.
And you think about how we've been sheltering in place and we've been putting up with all these rules and regulations, and really, what does the future hold? And none of us really know that. However, what are some things that maybe parents or families can hold on to or, think about in these uncertain times that are actually certain?
Well, I think the most important thing is you've hit the word uncertain, because yes, we're going to get through this, absolutely, but we're also going to be raising our kids in a continued uncertain world. So if there's anything, maybe it's pushing the pause button to go, what does my kid really need that I can start helping to prepare him for so he can handle not just now, but later. And the good thing is resilient children are made, not born.
Yes.
What we need to do is put a little more time and energy on those skills. And one of those career skills is empathy.
That's awesome. So what was the genesis behind this? What was your thought process like, we need to put this together?
Actually, it hit me at a horrific time when I was working in violence prevention, and I had turned on the news and watched the Columbine massacre. So it was, and I had just spoken at Littleton, Colorado, and had told my husband, this is where we should be raising our sons.
Wow.
So I started researching, how do we stop violence? And the fascinating thing at that point, I was looking at the other spectrum of what really does stop it. And empathy kept coming up over and over again. But my moment where I said, I got to write this, was I wrote a bill on how to stop school shootings. I was presenting it at the state assembly, and I was exhausted. I'd just given this speech, and I thought, oh my gosh, I hope they pass this thing. And I went out to the hallway. I was getting a drink of water, and all of a sudden, I heard this strange noise, and it's a kid. He must have been 15 years of age. He was holding up his jeans. I don't know why the heck he's at the Senate chambers, but he walks by me and goes, great speech, lady. Now, I pulled him over and said, what'd you like about it? And he said, oh, it was all the stuff you talked about teaching kids how to care. That's what kids need these days. And he turns to say, thank you, please keep giving that speech, lady. And then he says, it would have kept my brother out of jail. So that was the impetus. And then I went, boy, this thing called empathy is so powerful. I don't care if it's from poverty to privilege. Every kid needs it in an uncertain world.
So when you talk about what matters most, is that what matters most?
I think it's one of the core pieces, because it's the human side of our children. It's the piece that's going to endure, that empathy is what's going to help them get not only their mental health in state. 1 out of 3 kids is now suffering prior to a pandemic with a major anxiety or stress issues. That isn't healthy.
Right.
Empathy is key. Number 2, it's healthy relationships. What helps our kids be mentally healthier? Relationships. They're the loneliest breed we've ever seen. What makes them more successful in life? Harvard Business Review says this is the top employability factor. So it's going to make our kids more successful, but also happier and also more prepared for life. We just need to add it to our parenting agenda.
So when we talk about parenting, and you've already touched on the rise in anxiety, others have said there's really a touch point between that and technology. Kids are looking down all the time. Talk to us about that.
Well, one of the things we do know about empathy, and it's made up of 9 habits. That's the fifth thing, is when I said, okay, how the heck do we teach this? I started to figure out, okay, there's a framework and it's made of 9 habits. What habit is most important? Emotional literacy. It's the gateway to empathy, because empathy is feeling with another person. You can't feel with another person until I look at you and go, oh, you look stressed, to myself, or he sounds upset, or wow, she looks really, really frustrated. Now I'm going to walk forth and act forth. If you keep looking at screens, it lowers your emotional literacy. And you don't learn emotional literacy from an emoji. You learn it from face-to-face connection. So the takeaway here is, our kids are digital natives.
Yes.
It's not like we're going to get rid of the computers. It just means we as parents need to be more intentional and find face-to-face connection time when they are with us, because there's no rewind button on parenting. Let's start taking that up and start just finding ways to connect and talk.
So I've read your blog and the importance of being an example to our children. So what are 2 simple things that parents can be doing?
Well, the simplest one is ask yourself every night, this is going to be Guilt 101, if my kid had only my behavior to watch, what would he have caught today? The first thing is tune up in yourself what example you want your child to be or take, because the simplest way to teach empathy or any other character strength is through example and modeling. You can also just simply, besides being the example, I think right now, I just did a Today Show segment, and it was very disturbing to me because it was hundreds of parents asking questions about this time of uncertainty. But the single one that kept coming over and over again is, how do I deal with my own stress levels as a parent, my own burnout levels as a parent? We're burning out, and therefore we can't be calm and cool to ourselves and to our children. We need to take care of us so we can model calmness to our kids. We can tell our kids, don't worry, it's going to be okay, honey.
Right.
But unless we're cool and calm, it isn't going to come through. So the simplest one on that right now, your children need you not as a to-do list, but just a person that is being, your presence. Just be there with your kids. Be soothing with your kids, because that's what gets kids through adversity. Not just now, but for the rest of their lives. You're not a to-do list. You're just a to be, which means change your role from a verb to a noun, and you'll be a lot better off right now.
Absolutely. And I try to come back to just the simple concept of the power of today.
Yes.
And the responsibility of today.
Yes.
And moms and dads, it's really important to be present just today.
Well, and that goes hand in hand with empathy. Unless you're present, you're not going to be able to tune in and know how the other person is doing. The single greatest arsenal in your toolkit of parent is empathy. Because if you can empathize with, where's my kid coming from? Ooh, he looks a little stressed right now. Why did he do what he did? What does he need?
Right.
Oh my gosh, you have to be present in that moment to catch that moment, because a lot of times they're not going to come up, I'm really suffering from stress or low self-esteem, Mom. You got to read that in the child. And that's why practicing empathy yourself is how you can also help your child learn it.
Well, I think also too, it's the fact that moms and dads, if you're taking care of yourself emotionally, if you're carving out some time in the day to remind yourself of, what are you grateful for?
Exactly.
What are the blessings that are here today?
Well, and you've just mentioned something that's really important, gratitude.
Okay.
When we look at UC Berkeley, and it's perfect for right now, of what makes happier people, gratitude. Thank you notes, revive them. Because when your child writes a thank you, not texts it, writes it, he's more likely to think about the person and get into that other person's shoes of being appreciative of what that person did for me. That's empathy. So it's a key line in point. Also, we're stressed ourselves. One of the most important things we also need to know about empathy and the 9 habits is right there in the middle is self-regulation. Unless kids can regulate that stress, it builds. And so what they do is dial their empathy down because they're in survival mode. They got to take care of themselves. How do you do it? The opportunity right now is real easy. Instead of trying to do so much, maybe it's find one coping strategy that you know your child needs or you need. I don't care if it's teaching your daughter yoga, if it's let's go for a walk every night, you're modeling that. Mindfulness. Mindfulness is highly correlated with not only building empathy from stress reduction, but maybe it's just putting it onto your agenda. 5 minutes a day, let's practice deep, slow breathing. And after a while, you can practice deep, slow breathing, even with a little guy.
Right.
What happens with the little guys, they breathe too fast, they hyperventilate. You need a paper bag over them. But if you put their back next to your back and you lock arms together and you say, feel my breath, now you can breathe it the same way, it actually slows them down. I just walked into a class in Redondo Beach. I'll never forget Jennifer Bell. She was teaching 6-year-olds mindfulness. And she just said, you know, when you get stressed, what do you do? And all the kids simultaneously said, you just breathe, Miss Bell, you just breathe. They all get down on the floor because that's what they're trying to do. They put beanbags on their tummies because Jennifer Bell told them, Froggy doesn't like to go up and down real fast. It makes them scared. Well, she really was trying to help the little kid go slow breath. Well, the little beanbag would go up and down, and pretty soon, 3 minutes later, the whole class was asleep. And I'm going, this is great, but She had practiced that 5 minutes a day, every day. I was viewing her at the end of the school year.
Well, that's awesome. That's
Do the
awesome.
same in your home.
So as an educational psychologist, how are you dealing during this time in your own shelter in place, and what are the things that are getting you through the day?
The most important thing that's getting me through the day is I decided to turn off the news. That really helped, because I was starting to get myself feeling stressed of, oh my gosh, how bad is it? And I would hear certain newscasts or certain people saying certain things. It was really impacting my sleep. The first thing is I had to tune into my own stress levels.
Okay.
The second thing is I got on Zoom, and we're doing card games that are so fun with family members, with girlfriends, last night we did categories with 4 other couples, and it was hysterical. But I'm finding that if you're too lonely, that loneliness also takes your empathy down, and you don't feel mentally healthy. One of the best parts about empathy is that it boosts your resilience and your mental health. So we got to rethink connection. If we can't do it face to face, we can still do it, but it's still making it fun and vibrant so we have relationships.
Exactly, because that human connection is so important. Just so important. And so as we're doing those Zoom calls every day and we're having those meetings online every day, there's a disconnection.
Yeah.
And so how are you, as you're thinking about just really the future, what do we need to be doing as families?
The most important thing I think we need to be doing as families is, once again, pausing and fast forwarding. What do kids, the pandemic generation, need? These kids have faced something that's very unique and unprecedented. And we do know that if on the same old they were 1 out of 3 kids prior to this already stressed, then let's fast forward it and say it's only going to increase it. First thing is, yeah, they need to be smart here, but they also need to be smart here. And we need to start preparing them. We need to make sure they have coping skills. That's number one, above all else, that they can use forever. And each kid may cope a little differently. You may want to give your kid an arsenal of, here's some things what'll help you. I just got done with interviewing 100 teens. And they were fascinating, wonderful, hopeful children. But I asked each one of them, my most important question was, I understand you're the most stressed out generation known to man. Do you agree?
The most anxious, exactly.
Every single kid said, absolutely, we're stressed out. What do you need? We need coping skills. And then each kid would say, but don't just tell us mindfulness, or don't just tell us meditation. We got to figure out what works for us. Some of them would say, it's a playlist on music. One kid said, I figure out kinds of music that soothes me. That's what I listen to deep deep breathing. I said, what do you do when you get that moment you get recharged? She said, I just chime on Elton John, I'm Still Standing, and just blare it at full blare, and I'm going, oh, there you go. But I think that's key. The second thing they need is face-to-face connection. They're a digital-driven population of children, and that will be part of their lifestyle forever. So let's make sure that we talk about emotional literacy. Let's talk more naturally about emotions in our own home. Let's make sure that we have family dinners, or if you can't do a family dinner, there's an 8 o'clock every night meet and greet. Let's teach them, always look at the color of the talker's eyes. Because if you do that alone, it makes your kid hold their head up. Middle school kids did, they're more comfortable texting than talking. So one way you take it back is help the kid realize you got a face. And then you can start in with, once you hold your head up, start looking at the person's facial expressions. Start talking emotions more naturally. Start making sure that you also teach collaboration, that it's a we world, and they're very pitted. Kids said they can't stand being pitted against each other. I need that guy as my friend, and now that kid's my scholarship opportunity. He's taken that away from me. So dust off the game boards, just like playing chutes and ladders, but find ways to just help kids collaborate and get along. And finally, please, please, help them see that the world is hopeful, that there's goodness out there, because they're so inundated with the doom and gloom. I love watching kids that are inspiring. 2 kids, a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old from Philadelphia, last week got so tired of the doom and gloom, they decided to go down to their basement and just do one simple little video, and they were going to talk about some cool things that were happening in the neighborhood.
Okay.
Well, what happened is they posted it. Everybody in the neighborhood said, that's great, keep doing it. 3 times a week, they're down in their basement, and what's happening is it's now called a good news studio. It's gone nationally because everybody wants the same thing, but it's kid-driven. Too often we do the service projects and saying, here's what we're going to do. Follow your kids' lead and their passion. What'll happen is it'll ignite their heart, and you'll see something about your child you may not have seen before. That passion and that purpose is going to last forever, because every kid said, you're raising us about what? What did I get? I want to know who I am. And that piece alone is a crucial piece. Make
It's
sure
huge.
empathy's piece in it.
It's totally huge. And really, I mean, I think that's why John Krasinski's taken off with this,
Yep.
this show about good news and
Yep.
how we focus in on daily on just the goodnesses that are around us in our lives.
And there are. They're wonderful, good things, but we do know that images our children see elevate their hearts. It's called elevation, or they diminish their empathy. They're seeing a lot of doom and gloom, and they will forever. This is a breed of kids that gets the worst stuff straight into their cell phone, and you're not even realizing what they're seeing and doing.
Right.
They're watching live war feeds. They're watching live school shootings. They're watching a doom and gloom of people that are dying each day. Turn the tide and make sure you're talking about the good stuff. That isn't just about news. Books, moral imagination, chapter 4 is my favorite, because we know clearly that the kind of books that our children read, and we need to let them read a lot more.
Yes.
It gives them pleasure, it gives them a relaxation, also can elevate their heart. They may not be, crying their way through Charlotte's Web, but that's called literary fiction. And we do know that when we actually look at MRIs, our MRIs, and as adults, we're put in an MRI. Madison, Wisconsin watched the part of our brain where compassion is, which is right here.
Okay.
And they read us different passages from like To Kill a Mockingbird or A Beach Read. What happened is when we heard Scout and Atticus, our compassion lit up. When we were read, 50 Shades of Grey, flatline, did absolutely nothing. So expose your kids to goodness, because it not only elevates their heart, but reading is crucial for focusing, also at achievement levels, vocabulary. See, it's not either or. Empathy embraces it all and helps our kids in the classroom and in life.
Well, I love the fact you talked about, for you personally, turn off the news.
Yeah.
We live in a hopeful time. We really do. And it's about how do we find those places each and every day. So as people think about this book and getting this book, which is really exciting, what is the big takeaway? What is the one thing that you want people to know specifically about this?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway when I'm dealing with parents is when I say that empathy is something that can be cultivated is always a, really? I thought it was hard. I thought it was all locked
Had to be hardwired.
Yeah,
exactly.
and it's in my DNA. The other thing that I really worry about that's similar exactly with it is that there's different kinds of children who have different kinds of empathy. Some of your kids are going to stop and wait. They've watched Bambi. They're going to be a basket case the rest of their life, or at least a week. That's affective empathy, and you can see it on their face. Little ones even have it. It's emotional contagion. They see somebody cry and they start to cry. But because your child isn't the crying type, doesn't mean they don't have empathy. They may have the cognitive type. That's what the world needs also, where they're a little more cautious, they're a little more trying to figure out, where's the other person coming from? Oh my gosh, that's perspective taking. And that's what we all need, to step into somebody else's shoes. The third kind of empathy is the kid who comes running home because somebody was hurt or somebody was bullied. What can I do, Mom? What can I do? Oh, bless the kid. That's empathy and action. That's the third piece. So there's ABCs: affective, behavior, and cognitive. All three of them matter. Kids have different levels of them, different temperaments, but it is doable in each child, and it'll give your child a huge advantage.
Huge advantage. Great, 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 great. Well, I'm just so thrilled we had this opportunity to connect and share. So glad that you came back to the Classical Academies to help encourage our families and our students.
Thank you.
We're doing great things here, and I know that as we think about next year with, once again, so much uncertainty, and we're coming up with our school plan and moving forward, I know that there are books and experts like you that can continue to encourage us. So thank you.
Thank you. Best to you.